The night had started like any other, or at least I thought it would. It was a rare occasion, me, out with my best friend, Sarah, away from the kids, and free from the usual routine of home and work. I was looking forward to it, needing a break, even if just for a few hours. My husband, Ethan, had stayed behind, choosing to relax at home after a long week at the office. He was always more of a homebody, and I didn't mind that. It gave me the freedom to be myself, even if just for a night. The club was buzzing with energy when we arrived, a place I hadn't visited in what felt like ages. The music was thumping, the lights flashing in sync with the beat, and people were dancing, laughing, and drinking as if nothing in the world mattered. It was liberating, in a way. I hadn't realized how much I missed being around that kind of excitement. I threw back my shoulders, took a deep breath, and let go of all the stress I'd been carrying. Sarah, always the instigator, pushed me toward the dance floor. I hesitated for a moment, the self-conscious thoughts creeping in. What would Ethan think? What if I looked ridiculous? But before I could talk myself out of it, Sarah was already dragging me through the crowd. So, I let go of my doubts. I danced, laughed, and reveled in the sensation of being carefree, even if just for one night. I was wearing the kind of dress that, on any other day, I'd shy away from. A deep red, form-fitting number that hugged my curves in a way I had forgotten clothes could. It had a plunging neckline, and the hemline was higher than anything I usually wore. It was daring, yes, but it felt good to be seen, to feel alive. For the first time in ages, I felt like the woman I used to be before motherhood and the heaviness of daily life settled in. At some point, Sarah pulled out her phone and snapped a picture of me, laughing and spinning in the middle of the dance floor. "You look amazing," she said as she hit send on the photo, the camera flash briefly blinding me. "This one's going on Facebook," she added, winking. I barely thought twice about it. It was just a fun night out. What was the harm? I hadn't expected the ripple effect it would cause. The next morning, I woke up feeling slightly fuzzy from the drinks and the late hour. Sarah had already left, and I was left in the quiet of my own apartment. I scrolled through my phone, still half-dazed, when I saw it. The photo. It had been shared widely, Sarah's post, but now I could see it everywhere. Comments pouring in from friends, acquaintances, and even people I hadn't spoken to in years. At first, I smiled. It wasn't every day I got to feel so glamorous. But as I scrolled through, the smiles turned into unease. The comment section was a mix of compliments, jokes, and some comments that felt too personal, too much like an invasion of my privacy. I thought nothing more of it. I wasn't going to let a few comments ruin my morning. That was until I saw the message from Ethan. It came through while I was finishing my coffee. Simple, almost too simple, yet loaded with an emotion I couldn't quite place. "We need to talk when you get home." My stomach twisted. It wasn't the first time we'd had serious talks, but it never felt this ominous. I tried to focus on getting the kids ready for school, but my mind kept drifting back to Ethan's message. What could it be about? The night had been fun, and I'd only had a few drinks. There was no reason to overthink it. Still, something felt off. When I walked through the door, Ethan was sitting on the couch, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. His eyes were narrowed, his jaw set. He was waiting for me. The moment I stepped inside, the tension in the room hit me like a wave. I hadn't even taken off my coat when he spoke. "Did you think I wouldn't see it?" His voice was low, controlled, but the anger behind it was unmistakable. I froze. "What are you talking about?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "The photo, Amy," he said, his eyes not leaving mine. "The one you posted. The one Sarah posted." What the hell were you thinking? I blinked, trying to process what he was saying. I didn't post anything, I said slowly. Sarah shared a picture of me last night. It was just a fun night out. What's the big deal? Ethan stood up, his posture rigid. The big deal? The big deal is that my wife is out there, posting pictures of herself half naked in a club, looking like she's trying to attract every guy in the room. His words stung, like a slap to the face. I was speechless. I hadn't expected this. I never thought he would react this way. Ethan, it wasn't like that, I protested. It was just one night out. It's not like I'm trying to. I don't know, be someone else. But Ethan wasn't listening. No, he said, cutting me off. It's exactly like that. You're out there, acting like you're single again, like you're trying to relive your youth, and I'm just supposed to accept it. You're making a fool out of me, Amy. His words hit me harder than I expected, and for a moment, I stood there, stunned into silence. I'm not making a fool out of you, I finally whispered, my voice trembling. I just wanted to feel like myself again, just for a few hours. Ethan's face softened, but only just. I can't keep doing this, Amy, he muttered, his voice quieter but still full of emotion. I don't know if I can be with someone who acts like they're still looking for something else. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I don't care. I didn't know what to say. The photo, a simple moment of fun, had become something much bigger, something that threatened to unravel everything we built. And in that moment, I realized that it wasn't just about the picture. It was about something deeper, something I hadn't fully understood until now. My heart raced as I wondered if this was the beginning of the end. The house was silent, the kind of silence that makes your heart beat too loudly, as if the walls themselves were closing in. Ethan had gone quiet after his outburst, his anger simmering beneath the surface. I could feel the tension in the air, thick and suffocating, and I didn't know how to break it. We stood there in the entryway, both of us waiting for the other to speak. I wasn't sure if I wanted him to speak, if I was ready to hear what else he had to say. The way he'd looked at me, like I was a stranger, like I'd done something unforgivable, it hurt more than I cared to admit. I moved slowly, shedding my coat and hanging it up on the hook. My fingers were trembling, my mind racing, trying to make sense of everything. What had happened to the man I married? How had one stupid photo, one night out, turned into this? I thought of the life we'd built together, years of compromises, sacrifices, and quiet love. It hadn't always been perfect, but it had been ours. Or so I thought. I could feel Ethan's gaze on me, but I didn't meet his eyes. I couldn't. Not yet. Not when the weight of his words was still sinking in, the accusation in his voice echoing in my mind. I'd never seen him like this before, so cold, so distant. The man I knew was always level-headed, always the one to calm me down when I got emotional. But now? Now, he seemed like a stranger. His frustration, his jealousy, they had all come to the surface in a way I wasn't prepared for. I didn't want to fight. I didn't want to argue. But how could I not? His reaction felt so overblown, so unfair. I took a deep breath and turned to face him. Ethan, we need to talk about this, I said, my voice barely a whisper. He didn't respond immediately. His eyes were dark, filled with an emotion I couldn't quite place, hurt, maybe, or betrayal. It was hard to tell. Talk about what? His voice was flat, drained of the anger it had held just moments ago. What is there to talk about, Amy? You're out there posting photos of yourself like you're some single woman looking for attention. What am I supposed to think? I flinched at the words, the sting of them sharper than I expected. He made it sound like I'd done something intentional, something calculated. But that wasn't the truth. It wasn't about attracting anyone's attention. It was about me feeling good in my own skin for the first time in a long while. I didn't do it for attention, I said, my voice firmer this time. I did it for myself. Just for one night, I wanted to feel like I was still me. Not just a wife, not just a mother. Just me. Ethan's jaw clenched, and I could see the wheels turning in his head. He was processing my words, but I wasn't sure if he understood. That's the problem, isn't it? He muttered, looking down at the floor. You're still looking for something outside of this. Outside of us. His words hit me like a slap, and for a moment, I didn't know how to respond. He was right, in a way. I had been searching for something, but I hadn't realized how much until now. I hadn't been trying to escape our life, but maybe I had been trying to escape the weight of it. The responsibilities, the routine, the endless demands of being a wife and mother. I loved my family, I did. But there was a part of me that felt like it was being swallowed whole by the role I played. I don't want to be someone else, Ethan, I said quietly, stepping closer to him. I love you. But sometimes, I need to feel like I'm more than just your wife. More than just the mother of our kids. I need to feel like I'm still alive. There was a long pause, and I watched as his face softened slightly. He was still angry, still hurt, but I could see the vulnerability in his eyes now. The walls he had built around himself were starting to crack, and for the first time that night, I felt a glimmer of hope. I know I haven't been the best wife lately, I continued, my voice shaking with emotion. I've been so caught up in everything else, I forgot about us. But that photo, that night, it wasn't about you. It wasn't about me trying to find someone else or escape this life. It was just me trying to breathe, Ethan. Just for one night, I needed to breathe. Ethan let out a long, heavy sigh. He ran a hand through his hair, clearly struggling with his emotions. I don't know, Amy. It's not just the photo. It's everything. The way you've changed. The way you don't need me anymore. I feel like I'm losing you. My heart broke at his words. Losing me? How had we gotten here? I hadn't realized that he felt so insecure, so disconnected. I knew things hadn't been perfect, but I hadn't realized how much we were drifting apart until now. Ethan, I need you, I said, taking a step closer to him. But I also need space to be me. I don't want to lose who I am. And I don't want to lose you either. He looked at me, his expression softening. I just don't know if I can handle that. If I can handle watching you change like this. It feels like you're slipping away, Amy. I could hear the desperation in his voice, and it tore at me. I had never seen him so vulnerable, so afraid. And I realized that in my pursuit of finding myself, I had been neglecting the very thing that had once kept us so strong, our connection. I had let myself slip, too, but I hadn't even noticed. We need to find a way to make this work, I whispered, feeling a surge of emotion. I don't want to lose you, Ethan. But I can't be someone I'm not, either. I need both. I need you, but I need me, too. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence between us was thick, heavy with everything left unsaid. But slowly, I saw a shift in his expression, a glimmer of understanding. I don't know if I can do this, Amy, he said quietly. But I'll try. For us. For you. And in that moment, I realized that maybe, just maybe, there was hope. We weren't lost yet. We just had to find our way back to each other. But I didn't know if we could. I didn't know if we could ever go back to the way things were. But we had to try. For the sake of everything we had built together, we had to try. The next few days were a blur. I walked around the house in a daze, my mind constantly replaying the conversation with Ethan. His words, his hurt, his fear, they haunted me in every corner of the house. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized how much I had been neglecting him, neglecting us. But how could I reconcile that with the part of me that was still desperately trying to hold on to some semblance of my own identity? I had been so caught up in our life, in the roles I played, that I hadn't realized how much I had stopped being me. I had always been the caretaker, the one who took care of the kids, made sure the house was in order, and kept everything running smoothly. But somewhere along the way, I'd forgotten that I was a person outside of those roles. And now, it felt like I had lost everything, my sense of self, my connection with Ethan, and the ability to balance both. The day after our conversation, I decided to do something I hadn't done in years. I packed a bag, kissed the kids goodbye, and told Ethan I was going to take a few days for myself. I needed time to think, to clear my head, to figure out who I was and what I wanted. He didn't argue. He simply nodded, his face a mixture of relief and sadness. It felt like the only way to save what was left of us was to step away for a while. I spent the next 2 days in a small cabin by a lake, far from the noise and responsibilities of home. The stillness was almost suffocating at first. The silence forced me to confront everything I had been avoiding. I thought about Ethan, about the life we had built together, and about the woman I used to be, the woman who was confident, independent, and not afraid to take risks. But somewhere along the way, I had buried that woman. I had become consumed by the needs of my family, by the demands of being a wife and mother. And in the process, I had lost myself. I thought about the photo. The night out with Sarah. The way I had felt when I wore that dress, the way it had made me feel alive again. But I also thought about Ethan's reaction, the hurt in his eyes, the way he had pulled away from me, the way he seemed to think that somehow I was slipping away from him. I had wanted to feel free, but at what cost? Had my desire for freedom come at the expense of my marriage? I spent hours walking by the lake, letting the cool breeze clear my mind. I thought about everything Ethan had said, that he felt like I was changing, that I was slipping away from him. And I realized he was right. I had changed, but not in the way he thought. I wasn't trying to run away from him. I wasn't looking for someone else. I just needed to remember who I was, to reconnect with the woman I had once been. By the time I returned home, I had made up my mind. I knew what I needed to do. I needed to talk to Ethan, not just about the photo, but about everything. About the ways we had drifted apart, about the fears and insecurities that had been building between us for years. We couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine when it wasn't. We needed to be honest with each other, even if it meant facing some uncomfortable truths. When I walked through the door, Ethan was sitting on the couch, his eyes weary, but hopeful. He had clearly been waiting for me to return, and I could see the tension in his body, the anticipation of what was to come. He didn't say anything at first. He just looked at me, his expression softening as he took in my presence. "I've been thinking," I began, my voice steady but full of emotion. "About everything. About what you said, about how I've been distant. I get it now. I've been so focused on trying to find myself, trying to feel alive again, that I forgot about you. About us." Ethan's eyes softened, but he didn't interrupt. He just listened, waiting for me to continue. "I need to be honest with you," I said, stepping closer to him. "I don't want to lose you, Ethan. But I also don't want to lose myself. I need to find a way to balance both. To be the wife and mother you need me to be, but also the woman I am. the woman I was before all of this. Ethan's face softened, and I could see the relief in his eyes. I'm sorry, he whispered. I didn't realize how much I was pushing you away. I thought I was losing you, but I didn't know how to tell you that. I've been so scared of losing you, Amy. Of not being enough. I sat beside him, taking his hand in mine. We both have our fears, don't we? I said quietly. We've both been holding on to things, to ideas of who we think we should be, instead of who we really are. But I'm here. I'm still here. And I want to find a way to make this work. For us. For the family we've built. But I also need to be me, Ethan. I need to be whole. I can't lose myself in this. He nodded slowly, his thumb brushing over my hand. I know. I'm just scared, Amy. I'm scared of change, of not being enough for you. You are enough, I said softly, looking him in the eye. You always have been. We just need to figure out how to make this work, how to balance it all. I don't want to be someone else. I just want to be me, and I want you by my side. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The weight of the conversation hung in the air, but it felt different now, lighter, somehow. We had laid everything out, confronted the fears and insecurities that had been tearing us apart. And though the future was uncertain, I knew that as long as we were willing to try, we could rebuild what we had. I don't know what the future holds, I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. But I'm willing to work on it. Together. Ethan looked at me, his eyes filled with a quiet determination. Me too. I'll try, Amy. I'll try to be the husband you need, and I'll try to give you the space you need. We'll figure it out. And in that moment, I felt the weight lift off my shoulders. We were still broken, still a little lost, but we were willing to fight for each other. For our marriage. For ourselves. We didn't have all the answers, but we had each other. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough.